we're learning here at chapter 11. We are going to finish Bli Neder today, page Tes Zayin. We're in the middle of the page where the Alter Rebbe explains to us that a Rasha V'tovloi and a Rasha V'raloi, a Rasha V'laloi in particular, there are grades and shades of how much of the vestige of some bad, evil, some indulgences and cravings for unhealthy things still exist in the heart of this individual. I'm sorry, just the opposite. That's a tzaddik viraloi. By a Rasha v'tovloi, Rasha v'tovloi means there is some vestige of good that still remains there, and it comes out from time to time, although most of the time, the person acts in a way that's against God. And let's see what we're learning now here. We're about 8 lines from the top on page Tes Zayin, which is opposite 30, which it speaks about here. Here. We spoke about Hidhudi, actually 5 lines. Hidhudi Aveda Kakoshim Me Aveda. So it's 1, 2, 3. The 5th line, the second word, V'gam. What if he's not thinking about, I'm plotting, I'm going to do this Aveira. He has a fantasy, a carnal thought of the union of a male and a female, a sexual thought, right? So he doesn't plan on going out and having any relations with women and doing anything forbidden. But he enjoys thinking and fantasizing about the zivug, the union of male and female. And Alter Rebbe adds the word ba'olam. Ba'olam means, in the world, meaning just a thought, just a thought that's a worldly thought concerning this issue. Says the Alter Rebbe, she'over al hazoras ha'torah. This is a desecration of a prohibition in the Torah, which is, quote, v'nishmartem mikol davaro. The Torah says you should be careful from anything that's bad. Say, the Chazal, shelo yaharer biyoyim, you shouldn't think about these thoughts by day so you don't act upon them at night. So in the prohibition, Moshe, of binishmartem mikol davara, literally Avram, what does that refer to? Be careful not to do a bad act. The Chazal say it also includes not just a bad action, but a thought that's inappropriate. And the Chazal place it and associate it with the verse unishmartem mikol davara. Or for example, so that's one type of issue that the Rasha V'tovloi engages with, which is inappropriate. Or she'ishas ha'kosher lased b'Torah. It's the right time to learn Torah. Isser's busy treating patients. There are other times he's not. So now he has an opportunity. That's called shas ha'kosher. The right time, the auspicious time, the good time to learn. What does the person do? Instead, what does he do? He wastes, he turns his heart. Mefane means he turns his heart, levatola, to idleness. He sits around and, just does nothing. The Alter Rebbe quotes the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Hanir balaylo, someone who's up at night, etc. Huli umefanali, when he turns his heart, hulu. Instead of learning, he just wastes time. They say the story with a chassid named Reb Shoyel Brook. He was the Rosh Hashiva, the mashpia of Reb Yoel Khan in Tel Aviv in the 1940s. He was a Russian Jew, a Talmud of the Rashab. So as he's getting older, some of us at least, maybe all of us, know you get up in the middle of the night sometimes because you need to go to the bathroom. That's part of aging, right? By some of us. Anyway. So Reb Shoyal had the same thing. So he would say, and I'll say it as clean as I can. He would say, what am I getting up in the night for? To go to the bathroom, okay? Or he said it, to go urinate. He said it in Yiddish, I don't want to repeat it. To go urinate, to go to the bathroom. That's why God makes me wake up in the middle of the night. He makes me wake up in the middle of the night to learn Torah. And he would grab a Chassam Sofer, the Sefer Chassam Sofer, and a Mishnah, and he would learn the rest of the night. He wouldn't go back to sleep. So here it's just the opposite. He gets up at night. He has to go to the bathroom. No, if you're tired, you go back to sleep. What if you're not tired? What do? So, we kind of convince ourselves we're tired, we're going to try to sleep more, or we just dray around, and we go down, we have a night snack, and things like that. Mefana libli. So the Alter Rebbe says, this is another example of the Rosh V'Toivloi, of the Rosh V'Toivloi, that instead of doing that, instead of learning and davening and doing something productive, Mefana libli. Says the Alter Rebbe, if you take one of all of these examples that I'm citing, that the Alter Rebbe cited, and anything similar to them, Nikre Rosha Beisahi. At that time, you call the full-fledged Rosha. Why? Because the bad within his soul, dominates, controls him at that time. And the evil, the bad, invests itself at that time in the person's body, and makes him sin, and contaminates him and defiles him. But there is still hope. And afterwards, you see, that vestige, Moshe, that's left in the heart of a little good, bounces back. Even after he wasted time not learning or having carnal thoughts, sexual thoughts, and all of that, he springs right back because he has still a vestige of good in him, which is within Shebenaf Shelikis. Where is this good within his godly soul? And here is the big word, umischaret, from the word charata. He regrets. Umevakesh, and he requests, he pleads. Mechila, for pardoning, uslicha, and forgiveness, may Hashem, of God. So the Alter Rebbe uses here, the two words, mischaret umevakesh. He regrets, and regrets means I regret doing what I did. I regret wasting my time thinking about inappropriate things. And then he says to Hashem, God, please forgive me. Give me atonement. Give me forgiveness. Okay? And remember, he didn't act on his sexual thoughts, and he didn't speak anything forbidden. He just didn't learn when he had a chance to learn. Says the Alter Rebbe, when he does that, if he does that, Hashem yislach loy. Now the Alter Rebbe is saying it, God will forgive you. God forgives him. Im shav b'tshuva haruya. If his charota, his regret, and his bakosha, and his pleading is what we call b'tshuva haruya, with the appropriate tshuva. What does that mean? Says the Alter Rebbe, it means al pi atzas chachameinu zal. It's based on the advice of our sages. It's the Mishnah in Yuma, the three divisions of Kapara, Rabbi Shmuel, Deirish, which Rabbi Shmuel expounded upon, as it says elsewhere in the third section of Tanya called the Geras Tshuva. And briefly, that is, if you had an opportunity to do a positive commandment, you didn't, the Mishnah says, you have to do tshuva. When you do tshuva, you get kapara. What if you, not that you had an opportunity and you didn't, but you actually desecrated lo saseh, do not do this, and you did it, the Mishnah says, tshuva's toilet. Tshuva itself doesn't yet wipe away the issue. You need v'yom kippurim. You have to fast Yom Kippur. So between tshuva, your tshuva, and Yom Kippur, it atones also for the mitzvahs lo seseh that you violated. And finally, the Mishnah says, what if you desecrated things that are krisis or Mrs. Bezdin, things that are, the Torah says you will get, God forbid, you'll be cut off, cessation, krisis, and the death through the Bezdin, says the Mishnah, tshuva is not enough, Yom Kippur is not enough. Over there you need yisurim memarkim, punishment, suffering. That's what the Mishnah says. I'm not going into how do you explain it. It says what it says, right? So, says the Alter Rebbe, depending on what you, the person who did the particular issue that we're discussing, you need to do tshuva haruya, appropriate tshuva, which is, he says, which is kind of based on the advice of Chazal. Now, in other words, like this, what are we talking about here? If this carnal sexual thought, if it's considered a prohibition, that means be careful of any bad. Chazal say that includes thinking fantasies, sexual fantasies. So that means you've desecrated a mitzvah's lo seseh. So what would be tshuva aruya for that? Tshuva and Yom Kippur. You don't need for that, if I understand this correctly, you don't need for that to get punished. Yisurin mimarkin. 1 second. But what if you ate Pesach, chas v'sholem, chametz, knowing it's Pesach and you don't care, then tshuva is not enough. Yom Kippur is not enough, and you will get punishment. If you will get punishment and you will suffer from the punishment, that your body aches and all of that, and you're tzabrochen and tzahakt, that will atone for your avedas. And that's why, Chevra, sometimes you hear and it's not something pleasant, you know. Have you heard of someone who you know is like deathly ill, suffering, whether it's from Yerem Machle, whatever, you know, we have a doctor here, you know, you see, you know, I remember someone at Crown Heights, he was such a Talmud Chacham, such a fine person, I knew him, and the Machle hit him, and he couldn't, it's hard to look, it attacked his face and his body, and my heart, and he went out just looking at him. It was like such pain. Do we understand? We don't understand. But that's Yisurim Memarkin. And there were Yidden who said when they went through Yisurim, torture and punishment and pain, this, you know, they said, this will cleanse me for some reason, that when I come into Gan Eden, I'll be completely cleansed. Now, of course, we Chas v'Sholom shouldn't ask for it, but I'm just saying, there is this concept, because it's a Mishnah. It's a Gemara, human Mishnah, and all that. So the point is, Alter Rebbe says here that tshuva haruya, that proper tshuva will, based on what the issue is, what the transgression is necessary for your regret and your bakasha to be accepted. And I just want to add one point to that. What this means is, Chevra, you know, when you learn Chassidus particularly, and maybe in general, and Chabad maybe in particular, but when you learn Chassidus, the Baal Shem Tov, we emphasize the good, asay toiv. But at the same time, you know, Chassidim were smart people and serious people. And everyone, whatever, they knew what they did. And they weren't, so they took things very seriously. It wasn't like, oh, I can do whatever I want, and then when it's time to go, I'll say to God, forgive me, and I get in. No, that's not a Jew, and that's not a serious Jew, and it's definitely not a chassid. They took it seriously. And the Alter Rebbe, what he's saying here, in other words, that a Rosha, v'toivloi, has to do charota ubakosha. And it's no joke. And again, does it mean to say you should be morbid and marashchoira and negative? No, melancholy. No, God forbid. But you gotta be serious. And if you know of an issue, you do tshuva. And of course, if the issue is too much for a person to handle and it will make them sad, melancholy, morbid, you need to move on. And you have a Rebbe, you have a Mashpia, and you have a Rav, and you have a good friend, how to work that out. Okay? But, so I'm not saying, it's like the Rambam writes, he says, who a Baal Teshuva, and he used to eat not kosher. And he's going to say, I have to show that now, even though I smell the non-kosher, I'm not going to eat it. That's how I know my tshuva is ruya. It's a Rambam. Says the Rambam, someone who never ate treif should do that. Someone who did, and he's a Baal Teshuva for eating not kosher, this particular not kosher, doesn't have the strength. That's what the Rambam says. And it's a challenge you're not allowed to do. So to put yourself in the exact same place where the Aveda was done, says the Rambam, a Baal Teshuva in this area is not allowed to do with it. That's a Rambam. What's the psychology of this Rambam? I think it's a wonderful psychology. That as strong as we think we are, we're not. And to tempt ourselves to, like, first of all, this whole idea, you have to prove to yourself that your tshuva is ruya. The Baal Shem Tov's approach is not that way. You don't have to prove to yourself. You have to live and do and be besimcha and do good things. You know, and the Alter Rebbe in Chanya in chapter 26, we'll see, he alludes to that concept. And he says it over here too. Hashem yislach loi. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say here like this. Do charota, is right here, u'mischaret, u'mevakesh, and prove that your regret and your pleading for tshuva and forgiveness is true by facing the same, by going through the same experience. Get up the next night. Last night you had an inappropriate thought. Get up the next night, start thinking, and then push away the thought, and then you say, wow, it's the middle of the night, and I'm able to change my thoughts. I am a strong person. That proves that my tshuva is ruya. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. The Gemara doesn't say it. The Rambam doesn't say it. What does the Alter Rebbe say? Hashem yislach loi. As long as you do tshuva ruya through mischaret to mevakesh, which again is serious business. It's not holding hands and laughing and drinking scotch. It's a serious business. But when you go through the serious business, you should know, Hashem yislach loi. Hashem forgives you. And when Hashem forgives you, don't look back. Don't look back. Looking back is erroneous and dangerous in a way. It's erroneous and dangerous. And there are people that tried and they failed and they got messed up. Don't look back. Like the story I told you, the guy goes into the IRT, this train, and he picks the car with the jukebox, the rock and roll is playing, right? He's testing himself. Don't test yourself. Don't test yourself. You have a desire for rock and roll? No problem. You know there's playing? Try not to go into that car. No, I'm going to go into the car and see that I can stay in the car and still be a full-fledged Baal Teshuva with my beard and my payas and my yarmulke and my chitas and my learning and everything else. Don't be such a chacham. So that's what the Alter Rebbe adds, Hashem yislach loi. Yoini, is your question directly on this? Because I really want to finish the chapter.
Yeah, no. The question is on this because we were talking yesterday about sins and about machshavos, and that when it comes to machshavos, a person, it's not considered a very, doesn't get punished for a machshava. So I'm trying to understand what we learned yesterday and today.
Okay, so So it depends what the machshava is. If you have a machshava, I'm going to steal, that's not a sin. But if you have a carnal machshava of a fantasy of a male and female, uniting and having sexuality, that the Gemara says falls under v'nishmarta mikol davar ra, and it is a sin. So it depends what the machshava is. So that's the point. There's hardcore sin, which is action. Then there's sin through dibur, let's say vulgar, disgusting, profane words. I mean, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Moshe has a tshuva about, definitely about certain rock and roll songs where he says it's usher. If it's of sexual nature, which is, we're not talking about a love song like Shlomo Melech's love songs. We're talking about something that's driving the individual to a sexual thought and act and behavior. But Moshe writes it's forbidden. See, again, I'm not saying everyone agrees with him, but so it depends what the machshava is. Any other questions or thoughts? Anyone that wants to say anything? Okay. Yes, me. Actually, I see it's 8:15. We'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll finish. Thursday, B'li Neder. But again, no questions. Clear? Hillel, it's clear. Both Hillels, it's clear.
Yes, it reminds me of quite a few years ago, I was at a Chabad wedding, and a popular band was playing, and they took words of Tehillim and applied it to a song that was popular when I was a teenager. And I got out of the circle dancing, and Rabbi Mishalevin, who was the free shaliach in the Detroit area, said, why are you leaving the circle? I said, because last time I heard that melody, I was dancing with
right.
other than a shaliach.
And you make a good point, an important point, because a lot of that's happening at our weddings right here in Borough Park and in Williamsburg and in Muncie and probably in Bet Shemesh too. It's a sensitive issue, and one that certain rabbanim and rabbis and rebbes probably, frown upon and make a big deal, and others choose their fight and they say that should be the worst sin. We got to deal with things that are more important. But I happen to relate to what you're saying, because when I go to weddings and they do that, or even, I don't want to say names, but even some very, very fine singers, and a lot of their music is based on non-Jewish music. That was the beauty of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, that he made most of his music was all original and kosher. You know what I'm saying? He didn't pick up rock and roll and turn it into a Jewish song. He composed the song. He composed it, and for that, the schus, that the merit that his music is used anywhere and everywhere world over today, by and large, from the most Hasidic and Litvak shuls and everything else. It's probably it could that because he used Yiddish. It was him. So when the Amshinover Rebbe said that the gates of Shara Negina were open to him, I understand it in the way I just explained it. What is it? You could take it literally. The tzaddik, the Amshinover says that Reb Shlomo Carlebach, he knew the gate of song. Okay, but I'm not on that level. I don't know where that gate is. I love singing and I know a lot of nigunim and all that, but to me, it's more like the fact that he made his own original compositions and he used Yiddish music. That to me is a rational reason why he got the schus. It's like our shul here, Shem Shabbos, I daven in the morning, which is like the biggest minyan factory. What's the schus of the shul? That in 1929 and 30, when they had the Great Depression, and people came to the Sephardic shul here, which still stands, and they davened, and then they changed clothes, and they got on the train, and they went to work in Manhattan, because otherwise they wouldn't have a job on Monday. Right? But a small group of people said, no, we don't know how we're going to eat next week, but we're not going to. And they broke away, and they opened a shul called Shomrei Shabbos, the guardians of Shabbos. That means you guys at Anshe Sfard are not guardians of Shabbos, because some of you are going to work, even though we know it's a it's Mesiras Nefesh, and you know you are really Shomrei Shabbos. But we're gonna hold out and look at the schus of those people, that their shul became the definitely in America and all over, and maybe even over Eretz Yisrael. So, you know, when Reb Shlomo did his original compositions coming from his heart and his Yiddish feelings, that goes a long way. Have a great day. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.